A few weeks ago, I posted a video about this 7.3 Powerstroke. This was an engine that I bought from another local yard with the intent to tear down on the channel. However, I then did a Carfax on it, which led me to believe that it had either 70,000 or 700,000 miles. And in that video, we tore some things apart. We pulled a valve cover off. We pulled the oil pan, checked out some bearings, looked at the cam. And I can tell you that the replies were all over the place. A lot of people said, oh, that's only got 70,000 miles on it. It's got high idle time, which that seemed to be the overall consensus. But there were a lot of you that said, I've worked on many of these high mileage, well-maintained engines, and that's just what they look like with a lot of miles on them. There were people saying, well, it could be someone swapped the gauge cluster, which is totally possible. Or maybe it wasn't the original engine and people swapped some parts over, or bought a reman and reused some of the parts that had date codes on them. I found a picture of the, actually I didn't even find it. You guys found, a couple of you viewers found the actual auction photos from 2015 when this truck ran through Copart. And well, the picture says it all. Now, whether the cluster is original to the truck, I cannot verify. The Carfax, especially back in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, not a lot of people put a lot of information there. It's just not there, which is why I was in this entire conundrum in the first place. The last thing I want to do is tear down a 70,000 mile motor. However, after I saw some wear and some things in it when we pulled it apart, I think it's best that I tear this engine down. In that video, I also asked you guys what I should do with this engine. There are two things that I don't like doing. Number one, I don't like selling an engine as good when I have any inkling that it might not be. Number two is I don't like tearing down an engine that is good. So I think I've got a solution here. What I'd like to do with this is sell this engine completely disassembled. We're going to tear this 7.3 all the way down, and then I'm going to sell it all fasteners, everything that comes off today except for the spider pipe, that'll sell separate. But everything else as a builder's package. I don't have a better word or terminology for it. I did this with the 5-liter Mustang engine, and it sold in hours, within hours of publishing the video. So maybe this will share the same fate and I will still make some money on the parts. I don't know what it's worth, and I guess that will be determined by the amount of machine work. But today, we're going to find out what the inside of an engine looks like from a truck that shows 699,341 miles. Well, since there aren't spark plugs to pull, the first thing I'm going to do is start stripping the valley here. We're going to get the spider pipe out of the way, harness, a solenoid, and then we'll work our way back to the turbo.
Okay.
That seems pinched in there. That doesn't seem right. Now let's focus on the turbo. Earlier today, I sprayed a bunch of penetrant on all the stuff that I thought was going to fight me. Hopefully that was a good idea, and that helped save me a bunch of time and effort. We're going to start with these up pipes. I have no idea if this is going to be enough to get these out. That's not really going to work too well because that doesn't go straight on there. I guess we'll start with this clamp, this V-band clamp here. Kind of figured that one would come out. We'll deal with that in a second. Now, let's see if we can break all of the bolts loose. This is still stuck on the exhaust housing of the turbo. I'm actually going to try to get these broke free. I don't know if that's going to help me at all, but I feel like it'll allow me enough play to get the turbo off and get this off of these up pipes. All we can do is try. I know what you guys are saying. Put some heat on it. Maybe the bolts will come out that way. Okay. Did it help? Ah, that will work. Excellent. Now for this side. Oh man, that one's coming out. Let's try this other one here. Well, all those bolts are out. Now we can maybe take the pedestal bolts out. All right, we're going to use a breaker bar on these because I have no idea how tight these are. Oh, not very. These bolts look way too clean for 700K. Now the turbo just pops right off. Right? It just pops right off. Looks like a job for blue. First, let's give it a couple taps here. Look at that. Okay. Oh, looks like we have an actuator to remove. Hanging out in here. Let's just try pulling on it. Yeah. Well, here's the stock Garrett turbo, and it appears to be an original turbo. I guess a lot of you guys say the early ones are the smaller ones, so this would be one of those. Everything looks to be in relatively decent shape. It does spin okay considering how long this engine sat. There's no shaft play. Wheel does not hit the housing, so it's decent at least. Well, next I'd like to remove the pedestal, but first let's try to fight with this a little bit. Or not at all. I don't see any other date codes on this. I'm going to be looking for everything date code related as I take this engine apart. Well, I found a part tag or label on this line here.
I'm gonna be careful, I don't want to wipe anything away.
Like it is. Okay, it says genuine parts, so it's probably a replacement. But is there a date code on it? I don't see one. Oh, it's a replacement for sure. It's because it says F81Z, and Z denotes that's been a replaced part. But that could literally just be this line. As a matter of fact, that part number is this line. Looks like copyright of 2004. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the AC compressor bracket, and then we'll start clearing the front of this engine. Hopefully we can get everything down. I still have that pinched wire. So that tells me that this has probably been a part. I think that's what we'll do next. We'll work on this water pump. Now we'll take the water pump out. It is broken from the accident this truck was in. I don't know what the big deal was, impact. Okay, that one was tight. All right, is that all of them? Looks like it's been hit real hard right there. Thing's dented and cracked. Get this off. Oh man, this thing looks terrible. So now you can see that wire was pinched in, it's pinched in this plate. It's not even pinched in the water pump. Is it supposed to be, or is it looks like it's stuck in the RTV. They were smashed in there. Wow. So the harness is damaged, unfortunately. It's been cut from, looks like the yard. But I'm still going to save it because the connectors are still good. So the water pump is damaged in multiple ways. For starters, the shaft is broken off completely. And then it looks like some part of the rotational part of the engine, whether it was the fan blade or the fan clutch, probably the clutch, made a very big indent and cracked the casing, the housing here. And also, if you look at this, it looks like the very tip of these made contact with the actual housing. It's interesting that it looks like this piece can come out separate, but it doesn't matter. This is all junk. If you look at the front cover, there's actually grooves worn in this from the impeller of the water pump. Now, I don't know if that's going to make this worth nothing or not usable. They're not terribly deep, nothing like that 6.4 cover when we pulled that apart, but still something worth mentioning. All right, now I've got a lot of lines to remove. Got some oil lines. We're going to get this fuel filter housing out of here and start removing this pump. Wow, that was excessive. Okay, those are just going to hang out there, and we can turn our attention to the front. Oh man, that was just rotted. Look at that. There's the bolt for the gear for the oil pump. First, we're going to take these two things out. Now the fuel filter housing just comes right off. All right, now we're going to get this loose. I'm going to thread this back in just a little. I might need to give it a couple taps with a mallet. This is the part we're trying to get out next. This is the high pressure pump. Oh, looks like I don't need to give it a couple taps. Oh, and there's the pump. Next, I'm going to take a minute and try to get this exhaust manifold off to the passenger side, and then we'll go to the driver's side. And I'm a little concerned that these are all going to round and strip, but we're going to find out. Yep, that's what's going to happen. Every single one is going to be like that. Yep. That was a bad idea. Bad idea. So, 12 millimeter. We're going to hammer a different size socket on there, I guess. It did it. That was violent, and I broke it. Dang it! Come on. This is by far the worst side. The other side should be much easier. Nope, that's gonna pull itself back out. So let's breathe on it for a minute. See if we can get out with a breaker bar. It's out. Ooh, it's hot. Hot. No, that one's gonna break. Okay, 3 left. We can do this. No, that's gonna break too. They're all gonna break. But let's get some heat on it. It's a good thing I had hot wings for lunch. Perfect. 2 more. That'll break it. Let's get it hot. Oh, yes. Impact should be able to get it from here. 1 left. Let's see if we can just do that one. Let's just get it out. Well, there's no tension on it because there's no tension on it. So let's just see what happens here. Hey, it didn't break. 1 hot manifold. Now we can pull the valve cover. This is the passenger side. At first glance, this looks really nice in here. You can see paint marks on the valve springs, paint marks on the head casting in multiple areas. The wire harness looks really nice. This is exactly like when we cracked the other side open. This looks the exact same. I would bet that this has had valve cover gaskets done, which has this integral wire harness for the injectors. We're gonna just gently lift this up, and then we can disconnect these dudes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to have to disconnect the glow plugs too. See how hard those are. Oh, they just come right off. Boop. And there you have it. Now let's take a look at these injectors here. Well, that one has a big reman printed into it. That one does too, but they don't look. It looks like they've removed all of the writing that was on them before. I really can't see anything on these particular injectors, but the ones that stamped reman have this black connector. So let's go ahead and see if we can get these out. Well, I thought this was going to be easy. Let's try this here. Yeah, that'll do it. There's one mighty 7.3 injector. Let's try that with the rest of these. I don't know if that'll work, but it worked on one, so it's worth a shot. There's the second one.
Oh, we moved it.
Now we can remove the rockers and the push rods. Yes. And now we can pull the push rods. So all the push rods look good. I do my normal checks of push rods where I look at the ends to make sure they're all glossy and that none of them look like they have a brushed finish, just to make sure that they're being oiled properly, and these look all good. Let's get this cylinder head off. So I was warned that these heads are going to be heavy, and I really didn't need the warning because they're cast iron, and it's a diesel, so they're dense. It also has a fuel rail in it, so wish me luck. Well, I guess it has to come off somehow, some way. You know what I should probably do? We're going to take one head bolt, and we're going to thread it in right here. So if for whatever reason this thing goes flying, it doesn't come all the way off of the engine. Did I miss some bolts? Is there something staring at me in the face? That's casting. Well, let's get something a little bit bigger. Huh. That's odd. Nope. I guess we're gonna have to try some other stuff, huh? I just didn't want it to come to this. You know, I tried to work things out, but it has other ideas. Sure, this is a great idea. We're gonna stand back here. No, no! Well, it worked. Did I just break something here? I sure did. Well, that stinks. All right, now I gotta, I guess, can I pick this up? Is this too heavy? Oh my God. That's, heavy is definitely the word I would use. It's probably why I couldn't get it off, because it's just heavy. Okay, so the weight is off. 114 pounds. 113 pounds. That is a very, 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 very heavy cylinder head. I don't know how I'm going to get the other one off. I don't think I can just lift that off of there without sending myself to the chiropractor. Well, here's the cylinder head. And I don't know, it looks like it's got miles on it. Lots of carbon, definitely some moisture sitting in that cylinder. Again, this thing sat for 6 years, 6.5 years. So that's a very long time. See the buildup around that valve right there. Now this was a mess. This was a bad idea. We're gonna do something different on the other side. But the cylinders are full of oil and diesel from pulling the injectors. So I'm going to suck all that out so we can get a better look at the bores. You can tell that this one is that one that had some moisture in it. Let's get this sucked down and take a look at those bores. Well, you can still see a lot of cross-hatching in these cylinders, but there is a pretty distinct ridge at the top. That piston's clean. This one we really can't get a good look at. This one's got a lot of buildup on it. But again, the cylinder walls look pretty good except for that ridge at the top, which that might clean up. But this is the real troubling thing. That appears to be a cracked piston. So maybe from the wreck? You think that was from the wreck? Some other source? Was it running with a cracked piston? The bores look good. There's some pitting. It's not terrible, but that piston, that's not right. Now, let's see if we can get this out without breathing on it, without the breaker bar. This side has a lot less corrosion, so I might get lucky. Yes.
Yes.
No. Yes. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna have to hammer the socket on there. I'm gonna get a 12 point for this. It'll work a little easier. All right, let's get some heat on it. I think we're good here. Ooh, that one's hot. Okay, 3 left. Two left. Ooh, that's hot.
So hot.
Let's get this one hot. Nope. This is another job for the 12 millimeter. Oh, that doesn't feel good. Well, I think it's turning. Oh, yes, it's coming out. One left. This'll do it. Success. All right, now we're gonna pull this driver's side or left-hand valve cover. Much like the other side, the paint marks are still clearly visible. This is really clean inside. We actually opened this up in the last video, and this is one of the areas that we inspected. So let's go ahead and get this valve cover gasket and wire harness off of here. Okay. Now for the injectors. Oh, okay. Well, I wrecked that one. Well, I guess we could use the big bar. I don't really want to do that for injectors, but well, let's get this one out, I guess. Wow, that one was tough. Well, that injector is done now. Now we'll crack the rockers loose. All the push rods look really nice. All right, now we'll crack these head bolts loose. Yeah. Well, I suppose I'm just going to try this. I don't know if this is a good idea. I've already had some bad ideas, so what's another one? No. I made a pretty big mistake pulling the head off the other side, and I don't want to do it again. So I think what I'm going to do is still use the forklift and the chain. I've got it bolted to this side of the head, and then we'll use the engine lift hook on the other side of the head. I might have to do some side shifting and driving forward and backwards to get it off at the right angle. But at 113 pounds, I am not trying to pull this off and carry this to the bench. It's just not what I want to do tonight. Commence bad idea number 2. Come on. It might work. I promise I didn't miss any bolts. All right. Did I miss a bolt? No, I did not. I guess I could give it some taps. Let's get my little pry bar here. It's leaking. All right. Think we're gonna be good? That was much better. Well, this head looks a lot like the other head. Cleans up pretty good. Yeah, wow. That does look pretty decent. I don't see anything jumping out at me. Don't see any cracks. Don't see any valve damage. It all looks all right. Well, much like the other side, I need to suck all this down. Now, let's get this head gasket out of here. That looks all right. The front cylinder has some interesting things. Lots of this carbon. This is probably from that ring here, this upper ledge. But more importantly, look at the top of that piston. I can't tell if that's damaged or not. It doesn't really look that good. Like the finish on it doesn't look right to me. And I just put scratches in it. Let's see if we can get a rag on it. I don't know, maybe it does clean up okay. There's definitely a little ridge here at the top, but you can still see a lot of the cross hatching in the cylinders. It looks really good. I don't really see anything that's wrong. All right, the next thing we're going to do is pull all the lifters out. So here are the lifters out of this engine. You can see there is some wear on the rollers, and the rollers that have the most wear are the stiffest to roll over, which is what you'd expect. A little resistance, creates friction, but nothing terrible. And these are the same lifters that are in a 6-liter and a 6.4, but those have twice the number of valve springs to push down, which is likely part of the reason they fail so fast in those engines. The next thing I'm going to try to do is remove this crank pulley. Well, that was a lot easier than I expected. Well, I've got my puller set up here. I have no idea if this is going to work, but all we can do is try. Oh, I see what's happening. That really wasn't too bad. Now I have some bolts to take out so we can hopefully get this front cover off. Is there nothing else over here? Oh, there is. There is. Well, it's looser-ish. Yep, got some bolts there. Everywhere. Oh, there's the oil pump. Dang, that's awesome. Okay. I don't know if that really got me anywhere. It could be that this engine's sitting on the pan, and that could be keeping this front cover on here. I think that's what's going on here. All right, let's see what happens here. Boy, that's still really heavy. You know, I bet maybe the pickup bolts to it, and that's what we're stuck on. I bet that's it. Look how much that thing flexes. I can't wait to stand underneath it. All right, let's get this pan out of the way. Somehow the pan has refilled itself with oil. Yep, that was it. Okay, all right, now that the pickup tube is unbolted, this cover comes right off. Now it's time we're going to try to pull the cam out. We're going to need to turn the engine over so that we have access to all of the cam locking plate bolts. So we can get to this one. This is not advisable working on an engine hanging off of a forklift. But that's what we're doing. So now does this just... Oh my gosh, it does. Well, that was way easier than I expected. So let's just be careful with this. We already know this thing has some damage. Okay. Well, it's more out. Now this cam has significant wear. It looks much worse than the lifters did. Now, I don't know if the lifters were replaced. The cam journals themselves look pretty decent. I wouldn't suspect we're going to see any cam bearing wear, nothing major. The cam. Is this what a 700,000 mile cam looks like? It's pretty much gone to me. And here's what the oil pump looks like. This is the housing. It looks really nice. There's a little bit of wear, but really it's not bad. What a beefy pump. It's really simple too. That's it. That's the pump. All right, let's get this pickup out of the way before we damage it. So I did want to talk about the timing cover for a second. Look how clean the inside of that cover is. This is the only aluminum piece that was on the crankcase side of this engine. The heads, the block, the valve covers are stamped steel, everything else is cast iron. This is the only cast aluminum piece. And look how clean this is. This looks like it came out of my parts washer. At least this side did. And the cam gear drives this. It's the gear for the high pressure pump. But pretty neat. While I've got this engine hanging here, I'm going to remove the flex plate. And then I can get all the rear block stuff off where I won't have access if I sit this on its tail. Alright, now let's see if we can get this off. There we go. So the end of the crank is coming off. I see. Well, that wasn't too bad then. Well, the cam bearings do have some wear, as you'd expect with a high mileage engine, but they're really not that bad. There's the front. Well, I'm not going to call this sketchy. I'm just going to call it experimental. I don't really know what's going to happen here. Oh, I don't like that. It's, yeah, that's not too bad. I'm being serious. It's not too bad. This is the part where it might be too bad. Yeah, what's realistically the worst that could happen here? I got some wood down here. Yeah, this will be just fine. I need more wood. Don't we all? Okay. This is going to be the funnest part. Which way is it going to go? Nope. I don't want you going that way. Woo! Woohoo! Ha 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 ha! It's fine. Everything's fine. Oh, we're almost there. That's heavy. I'm gonna need to use the big bar for this one. So, there. At that point, I can turn the crank over. And I can get all the rods and pistons out. So that's not too sketchy, right? Right? So I wouldn't call this dangerous. I think thrilling is the correct word here. Now all I've got to do is pull the rods and pistons out, and then I have to figure out a way to pull the crank. And I'm probably going to flip the block upside down on this table to do that. But first, the rods and pistons. Rotate this so that we have the best access. Uh-oh. Will this not turn? This will turn, right? Yes. Now, if you recall in the other video, I actually took some of these apart, which is why not all of these will be tight. That top ridge is going to be fun. Well, it's moving. Well, here we go. As you can tell, the bearings have significant wear. This is probably the worst shell here, but they are all pretty consistent. So what do you guys think? High mileage? Lots of idle time? No real surprises here. Now the rods all look good, but the pistons, they're all pretty dirty. Lots of carbon buildup. And I don't know how thick the rings are supposed to be. I don't really have a low mileage engine to compare to. They don't look terrible, but I also don't know what I'm looking at. Now, I did see some damage to one of these. And that is this one right here. This one appears to be cracked. We're going to clean that up and see how bad that actually is. Well, it is definitely a shallow crack. You can see it right there at the edge of the bowl. At first I thought it might have been some fluid sitting in that cylinder, but it's definitely cracked. One thing that's odd though is that there's not a definitive line where the crack goes on the side of the crown here at the top of the piston. You can kind of see it, but it's not super obvious. At first, like I said, I thought it might have been a stain, but it's also not a perfect level across, so I'm pretty convinced that's a crack. This was the other piston I thought might have been damaged. I thought it was melted, but it turned out it was just a bunch of evenly distributed carbon at the top of that piston that made it appear that way. I think this piston's okay. Let's gander at these bores here. Cross-hatching is still really nice, but I can feel that right there through my glove. It's not terrible, but that might be a crack. I don't know how, and I don't know why there's no other damage there, but that is something to pay attention to. The rest of the bores look pretty good, and that is until you get to this cylinder, which clearly sat with moisture in it. And this could have happened as this engine was stored for over 6 years. And this is the importance of storing engines fully wrapped up, fogged, and even inside. Do all of those things, and typically this won't happen. Let's take a look at this side. This side looks pretty good. There is a slight ridge at the very top, but it's really not bad. Some vertical lines, but this is better condition than a lot of the blocks we've seen on this channel. Okay, it's time to do some more thrilling things. Yeah! That was thrilling. Boy, it's like we planned that. Oh, like a glove. Let's crack these main caps loose. Ooh, these are tight. I don't really have a way to hold this still. Actually, let's go park it with the forklift. That'll do it. All right, now the forklift is pinning this to the ground. Should work a little bit better. More thrilling things. The main bearings have quite a bit of wear. It's down to the copper on almost every single shell. The journals have some moderate wear as well. Not like damage, like anything ran through the oil, but just lots of wear. Almost every single journal. We definitely need machine work, or at least polishing, before putting back together. I made a few mistakes during this teardown. First, with the injectors. I had no idea how much force it would take to get the injectors out of the head, and in my haste, I broke 2 of them. I was pretty bummed out at first, but after I looked up how cheap new injectors are, I don't think I could have sold those. Used aftermarket no-name injectors out of a 700,000 mile engine I didn't hear run, that's a tough sell. The other thing I did wrong was the way I pulled the first cylinder head. In my head, I thought that if I thread one of the head bolts in a few threads, that when that seal would pop, it would mitigate the chances of that head going flying across the shop, although you guys would have liked that. But what really happened is, because it was only a few threads in, and it took so much force to break that seal, I mean, it nearly picked that entire engine off of the skid, it ripped those threads out of the block. That was kind of a bummer, but we did find rust in another cylinder. There's a hairline crack in another cylinder. That would have been a tough sell anyway. I don't know if the block is serviceable or not, So I don't really know what to do with this engine, which leads me to the final question. How many miles are really on this engine? Well, I can tell you with certainty that that was not a 70,000 mile engine. All of the parts that made me think it was a lower mileage engine, the wire harness, the cleanliness of it, it could have been cleaned, it could have been oiled, which would explain the lack of rust considering where it came from. I think this engine has 700,000 miles on it. I really do. I think it was serviced well and often, and I think it just showed the wear of a 700,000 mile engine. The bearing wear, we saw a cracked piston, the cam wear, the lifter wear. That all screams high mileage, which is really impressive. I'm not saying anything bad about a 7.3. 700,000 miles is impressive for any engine, ever. There's not very many that will make it that far without a total overhaul, and it appears this one may have. I don't know if that was the original engine to the truck. They could have swapped valve covers onto a reman engine. There's a whole lot of variables that we'll never know the answer to, but I think it was a high mileage engine. So what do I do with this? Do I sell it as a builder package? Do I sell parts from it? I'll sell it either way. It doesn't really matter to me, and whatever I don't sell will likely end up in the scrap bin. There's not really anything that cool for my countertop. If you'd like to buy parts off of this engine or off of any of these Miatas, this is half of my Miata inventory, maybe not even half. There's so many here. I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to importapart.com. You can search through all of our parts. If you don't see what you're looking for, you can fill out our part request form, which sends us an email of exactly what it is you're looking for. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.